Hello to all dear Manhwa fans. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Before we begin, I want to send a very special greeting to those who left their comments on the previous video, sending you all a big hug. A special shout out to Beans N7Q, who managed to leave the first comment again on the previous video. You are the fastest. Thank you so much. Now, without further ado, let's begin this incredible summary. But they quickly left the bathroom because Choi thought Kim had mistaken the place. However, Kim stopped him, feeling dizzy from the rush. Though Choi was determined not to give in to temptation, he offered Kim a drink outside the bar to help with her headache. He expressed concern since she wasn't good with alcohol, and Kim appreciated his care. Choi asked her not to drink anymore, even after they returned, but Kim suddenly held his elbow, leaving Choi quite confused. Kim wanted to find a quieter place to talk, though Choi wondered where they could go at that hour. Soon they realized there were many magical towns nearby, and Choi jokingly suggested entering one, without realizing they had already stepped into one. In the dim atmosphere, Choi wondered why the lights weren't on. He decided to ask a young woman passing by about the issue. Returning to Kim, he explained that they could turn on the lights with the card they had, something Kim understood, though it was a bit embarrassing for him. Choi noticed that Kim had become more proactive than before, making him wonder where her excitement was coming from. As he watched Kim playing with the lights, something stirred within him. When Kim turned to look at him, Choi suddenly kissed her, confusing her even more. She couldn't understand why he had done that so suddenly. Though she wanted to stop him, she couldn't. And after that, both felt the need to pray for a while. Meanwhile, back at the bar, Yumin was furious that Choi had disappeared and wanted to know where he was. She insulted him while trying to call, but he wasn't answering. Choi and Kim were still praying since it was late. After bathing, they continued their prayers to God, seeking to purify their souls. Choi also noticed that Kim shared the same dedication to prayer as Yumin, something he deduced from past photos. They spent an entire chapter deep in prayer. The next morning, Choi woke up with some difficulty, realizing he was still wearing the same robe from the day before. Noticing Kim's presence in the room, he understood that waking up in a magical town was a significant step toward adulthood for her. When he asked Kim if she had slept well, he noticed she seemed troubled, especially about having made a serious mistake. In his thoughts, Choi couldn't quite understand Kim's expression or mood. He wondered if she regretted wasting time in praying, leading him to assume that for her, it had been an accident. He wanted to start with an apology, but before he could say anything, Kim spoke first, saying she was sorry. She admitted that she couldn't resist the urge to pray and that she had probably been a burden. Choi quickly denied this, which reassured her a little. However, she still scolded herself for wanting to have a private conversation, but ending up in a magical town, as well as for not being able to contain her devotion to the Lord's word. When Choi asked what she wanted to talk about, she mentioned it was about Seola. Later that afternoon at a cafe, Choi learned that Seola was being bullied. This reminded him that Seola had always been a loner. Kim acknowledged Seola's kindness and how well she had treated her, but also knew that Jinen and her friends found Seola annoying and deliberately ignored her. Moreover, Seola hadn't attended the gathering because she was misled about the details. Kim explained that when the meeting was announced, Seola wasn't informed because they had decided to separate men and women and notify them separately. Although Kim had tried to tell Seola, she ultimately chose not to attend. Choi thought that if Seola had gone, Kim would have been the center of Jaeun's attention, which might have been why Seola stayed away, to protect her. Kim felt discouraged, unsure of what to do about the situation. Wanting to reassure her, Choi lied, saying it wasn't something to worry about since it wasn't a big deal. He told her not to stress over it, as he would handle Seola himself. He also mentioned that they had a good time the day before, which flustered Kim. Feeling embarrassed, Kim decided to leave first. But before going, she told Choi that the next time they prayed, she wanted to purify her soul completely, but only when it was a truly safe day. Choi understood this and realized that Kim had grown much more capable. A few days later, after classes ended on a Friday, all the boys were heading to a club after smoking for a while. However, Choi was worried about Seola because of what he had observed. He knew she was a loner who usually walked alone, but now it seemed that other girls disliked that about her. This also made some of the guys uncomfortable around her. Even so, Choi was aware that Seola had many admirers, so he figured it wasn't something he needed to worry about. At that moment, someone called out to him, but when he turned around, he was hit with a backpack. It was Yumin who had thrown it at him because he had forgotten it the other day. Choi was surprised, as he thought that backpack was lost. When Yumin asked where he had been, he simply told her that he had gone home to sleep, though he knew that was a lie since he had actually been with Kim praying. Just then, Choi remembered something and wanted to ask about the last time they had prayed, which embarrassed Yumin. She explained that she hadn't been able to pray lately because she was too busy and would do it next time. But that wasn't what Choi was referring to. He meant the time she purified her soul with holy water and was worried that it hadn't been a safe day. This flustered Yumin, but it also started to annoy Choi a little. She told him that it was fine because of some pills she had been taking. Choi was intrigued by the mention of medication, and she confirmed that she used them to manage her discomfort during the full moon. Even so, Choi apologized for being careless. However, Yumin had to leave because she was busy. But before going, she suggested that next time he could purify his soul with complete peace of mind. This, of course, embarrassed Choi, but Yumin already knew why. She even teased him, joking that her heart skipped a beat every time she saw him. That afternoon, Choi was ready to go home when he noticed a small note. He picked it up, realizing it was something he had in his backpack, specifically from when he left Seola alone in the library. This made him thoughtful, mostly because he wasn't sure if she would still be there that night. At the library, Seola was reading a book when she realized how late it had gotten. Though she didn't want to go home, she suddenly heard a voice commenting on how unusual it was to see her alone and studying on a Friday night, calling her a model student. Seola quickly turned around and saw that it was Choi. She wondered to herself why he was there, as it was pretty unusual. She made sure to point this out to him, but then remembered that she had misunderstood the situation last time, so she assumed he was there to study. However, Choi clarified that he had been looking for her, because Kim told him she was in the library. This made Seola jealous of how close Kim and Choi were becoming, though he didn't understand why she was upset. He then told Seola that everyone had been sad not to see her at the gathering, but what she really wanted to know was whether Choi had also been upset about it. Though Seola was about to say she was joking, Choi admitted that he was, as it was a shame not to have seen her there. This flustered Seola, and as a result, she decided to invite him for drinks. Choi accepted, eager to leave as soon as possible. Of course, this reaction wasn't what Seola had expected. Under the glow of the night, they searched for a bar, but the first one was packed. The same thing happened at another place, leaving them without options. Seola cursed the situation, saying it was Friday and her body knew it. Choi, however, wanted to be logical about it, pointing out that since it was the weekend, most places would be full. Even though Choi suggested trying somewhere else, Seola knew they wouldn't find an open spot. Understanding her point, Choi asked what they should do. Seola then proposed going to his place, which flustered him a little, but he agreed. However, he wanted to make sure she was comfortable with the idea, and she confirmed that she was. Seola then asked if Choi would be playful, to which he immediately denied. She expressed that she just wanted to drink to relieve the stress of the past few days, and Choi understood. So, he decided to stop by a store to buy drinks, while Seola watched him with a teasing smile. Playfully, she asked if he was going to invite her for a drink. Even though she didn't want to take advantage of his invitation, when they were at the store, Choi was picking out drinks, unaware that Seola was piling a bunch of chips into the basket. When Choi went to grab some sweets, he noticed the large number of snacks she had chosen and jokingly asked if she was a little kid. With her usual charm and sweetness, Seola tried to convince him to buy the chips, but Choi told her to wait outside while he finished selecting everything. Unfortunately for Seola, her charms didn't work this time. When they arrived at the apartment complex where Choi lived, Seola showed interest in the neighborhood, commenting on how nice and clean it was. She asked about the cost of living, security, and public services, which made Choi wonder if she was considering moving. Despite her questions, they entered Choi's room to put their things away before they started drinking. After a while, Seola and Choi were enjoying their time together, drinking and having fun with their conversation. Choi noticed how everything felt more relaxed after a few drinks, and wondered how to bring up the sensitive topic of Seola's issues at the university. When Seola asked for another drink, Choi took the opportunity to suggest that she speak to him less formally and call him Oppa, which made her laugh. Although she agreed to the idea, the joke annoyed Choi a little, though Seola quickly reassured him. As she tried to pour another drink, Seola accidentally spilled it on Choi. Even though she apologized and tried to clean it up, she became flustered upon realizing how close they were. Neither of them knew what to say at that moment until Seola asked if Choi knew why she hadn't attended the gathering. She explained that she had wanted to keep her distance from everyone. Choi was surprised that Seola addressed the topic so directly. She then wanted to share something with him. The last time they had been at the bar together when they prayed for his stomach pain and to keep her secret hidden. For her, it was hard to believe how strange that situation was, and ever since then, she hadn't been able to stop thinking about it. Now, Seola was about to reveal her current reality. Then, Seola suddenly asked if she was pretty, to which Choi affirmed, adding that she could also be annoying. For Seola, being attractive wasn't a good thing. She had been harassed since high school. If she was kind to someone, people accused her of having everyone wrapped around her finger. If she wore a short skirt, they said she was trying to seduce men. Choi hadn't imagined that Seola was so beautiful back then, so she showed him a picture from her senior year on her phone, where she looked stunning. Seeing the photo, Choi blushed. Seola explained that although she wasn't particularly interested in the engineering faculty, she had been excited that there were so few women in the field, thinking, sarcastically, that there would be no gossiping girls talking behind her back. However, when she tried to befriend some women in her department, they rejected her, telling her to speak to her assistant instead for school-related matters. She couldn't believe it was happening again. More than anything, she didn't understand the point of it all, especially since she realized that every man she spoke to always seemed to want something in return. So, she decided to accept her situation and make the best of it. Seola knew she was doomed either way, so she would do whatever she wanted, only seeking help from men when necessary and giving only the answers that were required. She knew that, regardless, other women would still envy her for her looks. That's what she told herself and decided to ignore it. Seola admitted that thinking that way made things easier and more comfortable for her. Choi, however, understood that she had been forced into this mindset. For Seola, school life didn't interest her. She only worked part-time. Choi knew she was referring to the bar where she worked, but to Seola it wasn't a strange place. Modern bars, after all, allowed people to have conversations while drinking. Choi, however, had gotten a different impression of the place. Seola had only taken the job because she needed the money. The hourly wage was high, and she planned to earn what she needed before quitting. However, before she could do so, she was caught. At that moment, Seola opened up completely. She admitted that she had convinced herself that what she had done was fine, but deep down, she knew it wasn't. For her, if Choi didn't keep his word, she wouldn't be able to return to university, and she had no idea how she would explain it to her parents. Choi asked if her plan was to keep praying to hide her secret, which Seola assumed was what most men would think. She was frustrated and hadn't thought of anything else at that moment. This made Choi realize that Seola was more naive than he had assumed. In the end, he apologized and promised to support her in her future endeavors. He didn't see himself as the kind of person who would treat her with contempt. Seola was well aware of this. If it had been someone else, they would have asked for more. Choi was lost in thought, having drunk too quickly, until he heard Seola ask if he had any religious wishes. This embarrassed him because they had already prayed twice before, and Seola knew it. However, Choi also considered himself someone with a deep interest in the Bible. Seola then asked if he wasn't attracted to her, assuming it was because he didn't like her. Choi told her to stop saying strange things, but Seola persisted, asking if he truly disliked her that much. After all, no one had ever treated her as kindly as he did. Choi felt flustered. Seola was charming, but had a rather naive way of thinking, which was enough for her. However, it made Choi a bit uncomfortable, and he wanted to stop drinking. That's when Seola suddenly confessed that she was crazy about him, despite not believing in God before, after praying twice with Choi and even drinking holy water the second time. Though Choi reminded her that it was because she had bitten the chalice, she hadn't been able to stop thinking about that moment and felt strange about it. At first, Choi treated it as a joke and even teased her, asking if every time she played the guitar she covered her mouth with her fist to keep from singing. But when he saw Seola's embarrassment, he realized she was serious. However, she didn't think it was strange. She believed it was his fault. Because of this, Choi suggested she attend an entire church service so she could forget about what had happened. Seola, feeling embarrassed, started lightly hitting him, but Choi caught her hand and asked if she did that to everyone, reminding her that she was the one who brought up the topic in the first place. At that moment, Choi realized how close they were, so he apologized and stepped back. He thought the atmosphere had become strange and that Seola was incredibly beautiful. Then she asked how skilled he was at praying, suggesting that he must have had plenty of experience with other girls he liked while spreading the word of the Lord. This flustered Choi, leaving him speechless. Seola then expressed her wish for him to prove his experience, not just to show off, but because she genuinely wanted to learn how to believe in God. Choi thought Seola was out of her mind for provoking him like that, but she wanted him to take responsibility as a man. Choi wondered if, aside from the juice, she also wanted to prove something else, though he wasn't sure what exactly. However, he noticed her nervousness. Seola then decided to start by cleaning the chalice for him. This signified that she was ready to deepen her faith, especially with the determination in her eyes. Although she was slightly anxious, she was prepared to embrace her belief in God. She began carefully cleaning the chalice. Choi recalled their previous conversation and told her to clean it thoroughly, leaving no trace behind. Once they finished, Choi noticed that Seola wanted to play the guitar, but since it wasn't the right time to sing, he suggested they pray together. While he joked a little about Seola's adorable expressions, he could see she was serious about learning everything about the word of the Lord. Although it seemed to Choi that Seola was trying to relax, he understood that this was her first proper service dedicated to her faith. Seeing her lovely expressions, Choi decided to conclude the session, though he felt slightly disappointed in himself. He had been so immersed in preaching that he realized he had spoken too fast. Noticing that Seola hadn't achieved the spiritual clarity he had hoped for, he feared she might be disappointed in him, especially since it was her first time. Seola picked up on his concern and playfully asked if they were finished, joking about how he boasted of his experience. Then she mentioned she was going to take a bath to wash off the sweat from the heat of the day. Her words irritated Choi, so he decided to show her the proper way to pray in order to purify her soul as they took in the Lord's teachings. Every now and then, Choi told her she was beautiful, which made Seola even happier, as she enjoyed receiving his compliments. By the end, Seola drank more holy water to feel spiritually cleansed. Satisfied with herself, she eventually fell asleep. Choi understood that it was normal after consuming so much holy water. To prevent her from catching a cold, he placed a blanket over her. Exhausted from the long day, Choi also drifted off wherever he could find space. The next morning, outside Choi's building, Yumin was growing worried. Since he wasn't responding to her messages, she assumed he was still asleep.